the 9th day of Chodesh Mar Cheshvan, and we are learning Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph of Maseches Pesachim. We left off. We'll just review quickly from the discussion at the bottom of Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis, and we'll send the link out here momentarily. There we go. There we go. So the Gemara had questioned at the bottom of Nun Beis Amud Beis. Maskif la Rav Simon Ardar disagreed with Rav Nachman. Mi pligi Rabbanan alei Rabbi Yossi b'Shari Lonis. Did the Rabbanan really disagree with Rabbi Yossi b'Shari Lonis? We were asking about date palms. And we wanted to know, does Rabbi Yossi disagree with the Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Yossi with regards to other trees? V'hatnan, didn't we learn in a Mishnah? At what point in time are you not allowed to cut down trees during the Shemitah year? Meaning because they need to be used for food and not for destruction. You're not allowed to destroy them. Shaman says, all of the trees at the point in time that they begin to bear something. Rashi says, at the point in time that they grow leaves in Nisan, meaning the springtime, the moment that they grow, that they are growing leaves, at that point in time, you're not allowed to cut down anything because they need to be left. Beisila says, no. We saw this yesterday. Meaning it depends on the tree, depends on the kind of tree. V'asi says, who boiser, who gerua, who palalavan. That boiser is that stage of tree development called gerua, which is a pol halavan. It looks like, with the grape looks like a white bean. And then the Gemara challenges pol halavan. So do you really think it looks like a white bean? Ela ima shiur ke pol halavan. It's the size of a white bean. That's the that's the defining stage of the growth and development of a grape. We are 4 lines down on Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, and the Gemara then challenges Uman Shamas Lei Da Amar, and who exactly is it that says Boiser in Smadolai? That Boiser, that stage of fruit development is called a fruit, and Smadar, that slightly later stage, the slightly earlier stage of development, is not. So Rabbanan, that's the opinion of the Rabbanan. And the Mishnah then says all other trees from you can't cut them down from the point in time that they bring out their fruit, which means that they agree to Rabbi Yossi with all other Ilanos, and notably with Tamarim. They agree with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi that you cannot cut down the Tamarim at the point in time Sheyotziu, that they are bringing out their leaves. Ella says the Gemara, Rabbi Eloi be nischane cuts. So what was Rabbi Eloi cutting down? He wasn't cutting down a tree according to the shita of the Rabbanan or according to the shita of Riosi. They agreed to the same shita. What was he cutting down? He was cutting down a tree that Rashi points out here is called nischane. And nischane, Rashi says, Tmarim shel dekel zachar, a male dekel, a male palm tree, ve'ena mizbashlim by elamis, and the dates on it are never going to ripen, meaning it is a stunted growth tree. It says Rashi, what do you do? V'godin or something nisan, ve'hen mizbashlis melehem bichli kapas tamarim, is that you would put them in some kind of little plant, some kind of pot plant. They're always going to be small. I don't know, maybe some kind of like bonsai date palm, but meaning it's never going to make fruit, and certainly never going to make fruit that's going to be edible. It's never going to ripen. That's what he was cutting down, and therefore we don't need to get into the discussion of what stage development was this tree. This tree would always be a stunted tree. There would be no issur in cutting it down in shvius. Tana Rabban, we learned in the Brisa. The Rabbanan told in the Brisa that you are allowed to eat grapes until the fruit, the grapes that are in the highest branches of the grapevines are finished. And if there are still some that are around later than that, you can rely on them. Meaning, as long as there's stuff on the branches, as long as there's stuff that's there, that's available, you can rely on them. You can eat olives until the last olives of Tekah are finished. And Tekah, the Gemara Menachos says, was very famous for its olives. There were lots of olives in Tekah. That was olive capital. Rabbi Eliezer says, gush chelev, really. Until Rabbi Eliezer says until the end of the olive season in Gush Chelev, which was also a very a popular place for olives. Rashi says, Nami Ika Zesim Tuva, it also has lots of olives. And that is the area of Asher, because, and the Pasuk says about Asher, V'tuvel b'shemen raglai, that, which is the Gemara in Menachos as well, quoted in that Pasuk, that Asher had lots of olives in his portion. Kedei, shehi ani yotze ve'enu motzei, loi begufoi ve'loi be'ikara rova. To the point, at what point in time do you need to stop? When a poor man will go out, ve'enu motzei, and will not be able to find loi begufoi ve'loi be'ikara, whether on the branches or on the stems of the olive tree, rova, a rova hakav, a quarter of a kav of olives. Rashi says here, mutar le'achal min ha-knusim, you can eat that which you've already gathered, meaning at the point in time that poor people cannot find any more olives. That's the point in time that you would need to get rid of your olives. You can eat your dried figs. You have figs at home that you've dried throughout the season. You can eat them until the pagim, that's the unripe dates of Beis Hini, are finished. The pagim Beis Hini, meaning they ripen a little bit later, and they were finished a little bit later in the season. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, he says, no. That din was never said. That din was never said. It was only the halacha of pagim Beis Hini was only said with regards to Maseches. Rashi says bebeis medrash. There was mention of the beis medrash leichashev piri ela lemaiser, meaning those unripe fruits of Beis Hini. That's not going to be a good way of defining the end of the season. The only mention of these fruits in the beis medrash of any of the Tanaim was with regards to Meiser, but it's not a good indication of the continued fig season. With regards to the Pagi Beis Hini, the unripe figs of Beis Hini, ve'ahini de Tuvaina, and the ahini, the dates of Tuvaina, chayav meiser. All of these things are chayav in Meiser, but that has nothing to do with the end of the fig season or date season. Says the Gemara, continuing, Oichlin b'tamarim, you can eat dates until the last ones in Tsar are finished. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Omer Oichlin al shel ben ha-kipim, you can eat dates that are on the upper branches. Ve'ein Oichlin al shel ben hashitzim, but you cannot eat the ones that we saw this brisa before, shel ben hashitzim, that are in between the thorns, meaning the ones that are in between the palm fronds, so the ones that got stuck there, even if they're not growing anymore, but they're stuck there, and you can shake it and wait for the wind to blow, and you'll get some more dates. But the ones that are in between the thorns, those ones nobody can get to, meaning not even animals, and therefore you wouldn't be able to rely on them. Viramini, and we asked a contradiction. You eat grapes until Pesach. Bezesim ad atzeres, you can eat olives until atzeres. Begrogers ad haChanukah, you can eat figs until you dried figs until Chanukah, which is one of the rare references of Chanukah in the Gemara and in the works of the Tanaim Bichlal. But Tamarim, ad hapurim, and dates you can eat until Purim. So we just said dates. It depends on whether they are between the fronds or they are between the spiky branches. And now we just gave a date for it. So for Amar Rav Bibi, didn't Rav Bibi say Rabbi Yechanan Tarti Basraisa Machlif? That Rabbi Yechanan switched around the last two, meaning that the dried figs can be eaten until Purim and the dates can be eaten until Hanukkah. So he switches around those two details in the Brisa. Says the Gemara, it's not a contradiction. When we described the dates until Hanukkah, the dates until Purim, and the dates between the palm fronds versus the dates that are in between the spiky branches, so that's all the same shear. One is talking about a time in the year, and one is talking about what it looks like on the tree, but it is referring to the same time period. It's the same shear. Alternatively, you could think, this one is taught explicitly. But if there's ones that are later than that, you can rely on those ones that are later. Meaning, the din is that you teach explicitly that this is that you end by Hanukkah, you end by Purim, but the other Bryce is saying, but if there's still some left, like it's not like a cut-off midah that like by Hanukkah it has to be finished. No, if there's a few left, it depends on the year. If there's a few left, then you can rely on that as well. So Tanya, Bryce says as follows: Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says similar harin milin. How do you know that you are talking about mountains? We said that there's different areas in those three areas of Yehuda, Iver, Hayardin, and the Galil, and each one of those is broken into mountainous areas and valley areas, and Shvela and low-lying areas. All of these areas. How do you know which one is which? So you say, valley means valley, a mountain means a mountain, but how do you know which area you're talking about here? So similar Harin Milin, that the Brisa tells us as follows, that the milin trees are a dead giveaway that you are in the mountainous areas. Simon Laharin Milin, Rashi says that's called afotzim. Aval shari ilon shebaharim ein yafin v'nafkamina delay ma'asin bikurim mehem tilakaman, and the nafkamina is, we're going to see these nafkaminas in a moment, that you only bring bikurim from trees that are in there, that are in the places that they grow appropriately. So the milin trees grow well in the mountains. The other trees don't grow so well in the mountains. These trees grow excellently in the mountains. Therefore, milin trees you will bring bikurim from mountainous areas. Similar makim dekalim, you know that you're in valleys if you are if you see date palms. Similar nechalim kanim, and you know that you are by the river if you see reeds. Similar shvela shikma, and you will see sycamore trees if you are in the lowlands. These are the areas of Eretz Yisrael that these trees are the dead giveaways of what area you are in. Even though there's no proof that this is the din, you have a zeichel davar in the Navi. In the Navi in Sefer Malachim, remember the pasuk says, "Vayitein hamelech es hakesav Yerushalayim ka'avanim," and the king Shlomo HaMelech made silver like stones in Yerushalayim, meaning that there was so much silver, there was as plentiful as stones. Vesa arazim nasan keshikmim asher b'shvila larov, and the cedars. He had so many in abundance, like the sycamore trees that are in the Shvela, meaning that's the area of sycamore trees that's in the Shvela, in the low-lying, the lowlands. Similar Harim Milin, what we just said, similar Harim Milin, that you know that you're in the mountains if there's Milin. Similar Amakim to Kalam, Nafka Milin lebikurim. The Nafka Mina is for the sake of bikurim. You only bring bikurim from the shivas haminim, but not from the palm trees that are up in the mountains, and not from produce that is in the valleys. Meaning, you bring it from the area that it grows the best. Don't bring the bikurim from areas that have weaker growths, which means that you need to know where is the best area for these trees to be growing. That's the area that you bring your bikurim from. Similar in Chalim Kanim, an area of rivers has reeds, nafkamina lenachal esa, and this has a nafkamina for a nachal esan for an area that you would want to use for the mitzvah of Egla Arufa. Egla Arufa, if somebody is found, a dead body is found outside the city, so the elders of the city have to come and they have to take an egel, they have to take a calf, and they cut off its head, and that has to be done by a river. So how do you know that you're in a river area? So that's meaning you need to know that you're in a valley. In Nachal Eisan, so that would be an area that has meaning the Nachalim, the valleys, even if there isn't a river there, it's a Nachal Eisan if there are reeds there. Similar Shvela Shikma, and what's the nafkamina of knowing that the Shvela has sycamore trees? Says the Gemara, nafkamina lemekach hamemkar. Oh, this is an important nafkamina for buying and selling, for business purposes. Rashi points out, what exactly you mean mekach hamemkar? If somebody says Shvela ani moichelach, I'm selling you an area in the lowlands, tzarach shiyuba shikmim. So then it needs to have sycamore trees, meaning that's expected, that comes with the package. Says the Gemara, once you've said this, then all of these dinim, both in the valleys and in the mountains, when you say I'm selling you a mountain, it needs to have milin, and when you are selling valleys, it needs to have reeds. Meaning, if you're selling an area, it needs to have those things. Otherwise, the seller would be able to, the buyer would be able to go back to the seller and say, "You sold me something, and it doesn't have what it's supposed to have in it." Meaning, the expectation is that these areas are supposed to have these trees growing. Masnisin, the Mishnah says, "Makam shenago." It's new Mishnah. Makam shenago. Back to questions of minhagim. Makam shenago limkar behema dakal anachrim. In an area where the custom is to sell a small animal, meaning non-bovine. We're talking sheep and goats. You can sell it. You can sell a small animal to a non-Jew. What exactly would be the question? We will see. In a place that they don't have the custom, they don't sell these things to non-Jews, you're not allowed to sell it. And in all places, everybody agrees that you cannot sell a large animal. You can't sell cattle to a non-Jew. Agalim usiyachim. That's agalim are calves. Usiyachim are ponies. Shleimim u shivurim. Whether they are healthy and well, that's shleimim u shivurim, or if there's something wrong with them, they're broken, meaning they have mumin, blemishes. Rabbi Huda mater b'shivura, and Rabbi Huda says it's mutter to sell a shivura, to sell an animal with a mum. Ben Beseira mater b'sus. Ben Beseira says you are allowed to sell them a horse. Makom shenagu lechol tzli, and this final din here is a very relevant din, as we will see in the Gemara. Makom shenagu lechol tzli b'leil Pesachim, places that they have the custom of eating roasted meat on leil Pesachim during the Seder. Ochlin, you can eat roasted meat. Makom shenagu sheloi lechol, which is our minhag. Places that they have the minhag not to eat roasted meat. Ein ochlin, you should not eat that roasted meat. What's the concern of selling animals large and small? What exactly is going on here? So Rashi says, "Makom shenagu shelo limkar deichmiru al atzman." They restricted themselves dilma asi limkar gasa, because maybe they would end up selling a large animal. So what is wrong with selling a large animal? Says Rashi, "The gazer bei rabbanan mishum she'ela umishum schirus umishum nisyane b'Maseches avodah zarah." They were nervous. They were nervous about borrowing and about hiring and about avodah zarah issues. And a Jew is obligated to ensure that his animal doesn't work on Shabbos. And if you are in the cattle trading market with non-Jews, they will end up borrowing your animals, trying out your animals, and you will end up making money from your animals on Shabbos. And that would be an Isser De'araisa or at least a Bittul Essay De'araisa of Shvisas Behema. What would be the reason that Rabbi Huda is matir b'shivura? Because with a maimed animal, you could sell it to them, because that they're not going to keep around. That they're not going to rent. Nobody's looking to that. That would only be killed and eaten for meat. The Gemara is now going to discuss this question of Tzli on Erev Pesach. Says the Gemara as follows: Amar Rav Yehuda, 6 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, says Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav, a person is not allowed, we pass on this in Shulchan Aruch, a person is not allowed to say, this meat is for Pesach. You go to the Grove, you go to Aroma, you say, I want to buy some steak. Basar zeh lePesach. We'll see in a moment you can't buy a steak either, but brisket you could. Basar zeh lePesach. This meat is for Pesach. Mibnei shinira kemakdish behemta, because then it looks like you are being makdish your behema. It looks like you are designating this animal as a korban Pesach. Va'ochel kachim b'chutz, and you are going to eat kachim outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and that would be in Issa Daraisa. Amar of Papa says dafka basar. This only applies to meat. Aval chiti loy, but not with regards to wheat. You can say this matzah is for Pesach. Nobody's going to think that it means that I'm eating it for the korban Pesach. The minter lepischa ka'amar. Because what do you mean in that context that this wheat is for Pesach means I'm keeping it for the holiday of Pesach, means it's not going to have any chametz. Ubasar loy. So what about meat? I mean, we don't say that this is going to be eaten on Yom Tov. So Meisive, we have a brisa that rejects this. Amar Rabbi Yossi says Todesh is Romi. That Todesh, who was Roman, a very chashuv Yid, Rashi says Yishol chashuv Shai Baromi. He was a very chashuv Jew from Romi. Hinhiges bnei Romi le'achol gedim mikulasim belele Pesachim. He instructed the Jews of Rome. This is in the days of the Beis Hamikdash, the days after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and there were many Jews in Rome. So he would tell the Jews in Rome to eat gedim mikulasim belele Pesachim, to eat a gedim mikulas, means a roasted goat on lele Pesachim. Why? Zecher lemigdash. What exactly is gedim mikulasim? Is Rashi says mikulas is tzluim roisha al kra'av al kirboi ketzlias haPesach, and like we're going to see later on Daf Ayin Daled, it means when you roast the whole thing together with the head tucked into the rest of the thing, you roast the whole animal together, exactly like they would do in the days of the Beis Hamikdash. Shachule, and they sent a message to him, to Todesh Yisromi. The Tanaim sent him, Imali Todesh Ata, if not for the fact that you are Todesh, because Rono Alecha Nidu, we would have put you in Cherem. We would have excommunicated you, because it looks like you're serving kachim to the Jewish people outside of the Beis Hamikdash. You're telling the Jews to eat kachim, to bring korbanos outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So says the Gemara, no, what are you talking about here? Kachim salkadaytach. You really think that it was eating kachim? He wasn't eating kachim. Elaima, they say, turning over the page to Nun Gimel Amud Beis, Korev lachol shal kachim b'chutz. It's close to what it looks like you're doing this. Rashi says, it looks like you're doing this, meaning he's not actually doing this. Obviously, he is. It looks like he is feeding the Jewish people kachim outside of the Beis Hamikdash, but not for real, obviously. And by Ezra Mizbarach, we will continue with Nun Gimel Amud Beis tomorrow, Shabbos Kodesh, before the shir in the afternoon, and again we will record online tomorrow night. Matzah Shabbos. Everybody should have a beautiful Shabbos, wonderful day, and enjoy the last Shabbos before the clock changes here in Chutz La'aretz. Have a wonderful day.